I was knocked over by the blast and was knocked unconscious. There was a walnut-sized piece of my brain missing, so that could explain my personality.
I'm going mad.
The once untouched, frozen expanse of Antarctica holds more than just glaciers and ice. Below its surface lies a supervolcano that could rewrite Earth's history, from unexpected seismic activity to the potential of a massive explosion. This discovery is so terrifying that no one is allowed to step foot in the region ever since it was found. 1. An upside-down supervolcano.
It actually has pretty regular strombolian eruptions. That's where a volcano just builds up some pressure on the inside and then it goes pop and it blows a bunch of lava out the top of it.
A research team conducting a routine drilling expedition in Antarctica aimed at studying ancient ice cores and understanding climate history accidentally stumbled upon something unexpected. As they drilled deeper into the ice, they detected unusual geothermal activity far below the surface. If that wasn't shocking enough on its own, they soon found unexplained seismic activity, which wasn't supposed to be happening in this area at all. Further investigation revealed extremely high temperatures deep beneath the ice, far beyond what they had anticipated. Using ground-penetrating radar, they made a discovery no one was expecting. Hidden beneath the ice was the outline of a massive volcano. The sheer scale of this structure suggested that it wasn't just a typical volcano, but a supervolcano, potentially even larger than the well-known Yellowstone caldera. This was the opposite of what they were expecting to see there, and made the whole research project go in a totally different direction. 2. And it means serious business. Beneath this giant crater lies a massive magma reservoir, estimated to hold enough magma to cause a catastrophic eruption. Scientists have observed that the magma levels are steadily creeping up, raising alarms about a potential eruption. To make matters worse, the melting ice above is causing the crust to get weaker, which could increase the risk of an explosive event. With temperatures reaching around 200 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas, the situation is more dangerous than it has been for the world in a long time. This combination of rising magma and thinning ice has experts closely monitoring the site, making it a situation that has the entire scientific community on high alert. 3. Because this hasn't always been a silent, hidden volcano.
Whoa, there it is.
This ancient supervolcano hasn't erupted in millions of years, likely before Antarctica transformed into the frozen wilderness we see today. Geological studies suggest that the last time it was active had to be around 40 million years ago, releasing an estimated 1,000 cubic kilometers of magma. Such a cataclysmic event would have had a massive effect on the global climate and ecosystems at the time. The eruption would have spewed vast amounts of ash and gases into the atmosphere, leading to significant cooling and contributing to what scientists refer to as a volcanic winter. The impact on prehistoric life was severe. The whole event could have easily caused several mass extinctions, reshaping biodiversity across the planet. Following the discovery of this ancient supervolcano, the authorities have restricted access to the site, declaring it a no-go zone. That is something authorities do, especially when something major is happening. 4. Chernobyl exclusion zone, Ukraine.
Some tragedies never end. Ask people to name a nuclear disaster, and most will probably point to Fukushima in Japan 3 years ago. The nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl in Ukraine was 30 years ago, but the crisis is still with us today.
The Chernobyl exclusion zone surrounds the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine and was established after the catastrophic Chernobyl disaster on April 26, 1986. During a late-night safety test, a reactor at the plant exploded, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. It was the worst nuclear disaster in history, affecting not only Ukraine, but also Belarus, Russia, and parts of Europe. The explosion occurred in Reactor 4, and the radioactive fallout created a toxic cloud that spread across the region. The immediate area became highly contaminated, with radiation levels way beyond lethal limits. The Soviet government evacuated approximately 49,000 people from the nearby town of Pripyat within 36 hours, and soon after, another 68,000 people were evacuated from surrounding areas. The full evacuation zone now covers about 1,000 square miles. The exclusion zone was established to keep people from entering these highly contaminated areas, which are still dangerous because of the radioactive materials like cesium-137 and strontium-90. While radiation levels have dropped significantly over time, some areas are still deadly, with long-term exposure posing serious health risks, including cancer. You can visit some parts near the area, but the main region is still restricted and no one can go there. 5. Mount St. Helens, USA.
No matter where you are on Earth, there's beneath you somewhere there's water. So if something hot comes up into that water, it heats it up. It can build up enough pressure that it finally just breaks through as an explosion, like a pressure cooker you're just letting loose.
Mount St. Helens in Washington state had a catastrophic explosion on May 18, 1980, causing one of the most significant volcanic events in US history. It triggered a massive landslide, releasing a huge lateral blast that flattened 230 square miles of forest, sent ash into the atmosphere, and caused widespread devastation. It took with it 57 people and wiped out wildlife and ecosystems in the surrounding area. It was caused by the buildup of pressure from magma beneath the volcano, which led to a bulge on its northern flank. When the bulge collapsed, it released the trapped pressure, causing a lateral blast that destroyed everything in its path. It also created a large crater and drastically reshaped the landscape. In the aftermath, the US government established Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument, restricting access to the region due to ongoing volcanic activity and potential hazards. The area remained closed for years while scientists studied the volcano's behavior, and safety precautions were put in place to prevent further loss of life. Even today, the area around Mount St. Helens is closely monitored for seismic and volcanic activity. While some areas have reopened to the public for hiking and research, most of the mountain is still restricted, so no one gets hurt in this area ever again. But some places are restricted for far crazier reasons, kind of like 6. Area 51, Nevada, USA.
The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had.
Area 51 is a highly classified U.S. Air Force facility. Officially known as Groom Lake, it was established in the 1950s as a testing site for experimental aircraft and advanced military technology, including the U-2 spy plane and later the SR-71 Blackbird. Its remote location and secretive nature have led the way for a lot of conspiracy theories, particularly those related to extraterrestrial life and UFOs. Many believe that Area 51 is where the US government hides evidence of alien encounters, most notably linked to the alleged Roswell UFO crash in 1947. Access to Area 51 is heavily restricted, The facility is surrounded by warning signs, motion sensors, and patrols, with deadly force authorized to prevent trespassing. Even military personnel and government officials need special clearance to enter. The US government has kept details about the site's operations top secret. People still want to go there. With people like David Grush coming out to expose the truth about this place, people will constantly want to come there, yet they'll never be allowed. 7. Antarctic ice shelves. Antarctic ice shelves are some of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth, and several regions are heavily restricted because of the environmental dangers and concerns about ancient pathogens. As climate change accelerates ice melt in Antarctica, scientists have become increasingly worried about the potential release of ancient viruses and bacteria that have been trapped in the ice for thousands or even millions of years. The extreme cold has preserved these microorganisms, but as the ice shelves retreat and melt, there's a risk that long-dormant pathogens could be exposed to the environment. This has led to restricted access in certain areas to prevent human interaction with these ancient life forms, which could pose unknown health risks. Not just that, but the rapid ice melt is creating unstable environments with the potential for massive ice chunks to break off and cause significant environmental hazards. This instability, combined with the dangers of uncovering ancient microbes, has led to international regulations that will never allow people in this region. 8. Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant. The area surrounding the Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant in Japan became a no-go zone after the 2011 nuclear disaster, one of the worst since Chernobyl. The disaster occurred following a 9.0 magnitude earthquake and subsequent tsunami, which overwhelmed the plant's defenses and caused the reactors to fail. As a result, radioactive material was released into the environment, contaminating a large area. The exclusion zone covers a 20-kilometer radius around the plant, though some areas beyond that remain restricted due to lingering radiation. Residents were evacuated, and access to the zone is tightly controlled, with radiation levels still posing significant health risks. In some parts, the radiation levels are so high that they are lethal after prolonged exposure. Despite cleanup efforts, parts of Fukushima will stay off-limits for years, possibly decades, because of the long-lasting effects of radioactive contamination. Some still dare to go there anyway, but they're just choosing to put their lives at risk doing it. 9. Gobi Desert, Mongolia. The Gobi Desert in Mongolia is famous for its incredible discoveries of ancient dinosaur fossils, some of the most significant ever found. Fossils of creatures like the Velociraptor and the Protoceratops have been found here, making the region a treasure trove for paleontologists. Because of the significance of these discoveries, certain areas of the Gobi have been declared restricted zones to protect these valuable sites from theft, looting, and vandalism. In the past, illegal fossil hunting became a major problem, with many fossils being stolen and sold on the black market. To fix this issue, Mongolian authorities, with the help of international organizations, imposed strict regulations and limited access to sensitive dig sites. These measures ensure that the fossils are preserved for scientific study rather than being lost to private collections or damaged by unregulated digging. 10. Bikini Atoll. Bikini Atoll, part of the Marshall Islands, was used for nuclear testing by the United States during the mid-20th century. From 1946 to 1958, a series of 23 nuclear detonations were conducted on and around the atoll, including the massive Castle Bravo test in 1954, which was the most powerful nuclear bomb ever tested by the US. The blasts caused widespread contamination, making the area hazardous for human habitation. The residents of Bikini Atoll were forcibly relocated before the testing began. And while there have been efforts to clean up the radiation, the area remains dangerous because of all the lingering contamination. The soil and water have radioactive elements like cesium-137, which pose serious health risks, including cancer and genetic mutations. Despite its tropical beauty, Bikini Atoll is considered unsafe for permanent resettlement. Although the radiation levels have decreased over the years, they are still high enough to prevent any food from ever growing there. 11. Hanford Site, Washington, USA. The Hanford Site in Washington, USA, was a key part of the Manhattan Project during World War II, serving as a nuclear production complex where plutonium for atomic bombs, including the bomb dropped on Nagasaki, was produced. Over the decades, the site became heavily contaminated with radioactive waste because of its operations, particularly during the Cold War, when it played a major role in the US nuclear weapons program. The legacy of Hanford's production activities left behind vast amounts of radioactive material and hazardous chemicals. It's considered one of the most contaminated sites in the Western Hemisphere, and efforts to clear it all out have been ongoing for decades. The main concern is the radioactive waste stored in leaking underground tanks, which poses a severe threat to the environment, especially the nearby Columbia River. No one can really access the Hanford site because of the radiation hazards, and only authorized personnel are allowed in certain areas. The cleanup is one of the largest and most complex environmental remediation projects in US history. They're removing contaminated soil, managing radioactive waste, and trying to prevent further pollution. Yet, it's one of the most dangerous places on Earth. 12. Oklo Natural Reactor, Gabon. The Oklo Natural Reactor in Gabon is one of the most remarkable geological discoveries on Earth. Around 2 billion years ago, natural nuclear fission reactions took place in this area, long before humans discovered how to harness nuclear power. These natural reactors formed when uranium deposits in the region, combined with groundwater, triggered a self-sustaining chain reaction, similar to what occurs in modern nuclear reactors. The site has been restricted because of both its historical significance and concerns about radiation hazards. Although the reaction ceased millions of years ago, the leftover radioactive byproducts are still present in the surrounding rocks. While the radiation levels are much lower than in human-made disaster sites, the area is closely monitored to prevent potential risks from the remnants of these ancient fission reactions. This site offers a unique opportunity to study the long-term behavior of nuclear waste and has been key in understanding how radioactive materials interact with the environment over millions of years. Due to its significance in both science and history, Oklo is protected, and only authorized researchers are allowed to study the region, ensuring its preservation and safety. 13. Svalbard Global Seed Vault, Norway. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, on the Svalbard archipelago in Norway, is a vital facility designed to preserve seeds from around the world. Established in 2008, it is a global backup for seed collections, safeguarding agricultural biodiversity in the face of potential disasters like climate change, natural disasters, or geopolitical conflicts. The vault is carved into a mountain, providing natural insulation and protection against the elements. Its remote location and advanced security measures make it highly secure, with access restricted to ensure the integrity of the seed collection. Only authorized personnel can enter. No one else is allowed inside the facility. The seed vault houses seeds from nearly every country, representing thousands of plant species. In the event of a global crisis that threatens food security, these seeds can be retrieved and used to regenerate crops. The restricted access helps protect this invaluable resource from theft, contamination, or any external threats. So this isn't really a temporary restriction, it's one that's going to last a lifetime. 14. Lake Vostok, Antarctica. Lake Vostok in Antarctica is a fascinating and mysterious subglacial lake, buried beneath about 2.5 miles of ice. It's been isolated for millions of years, making it a unique environment that scientists believe could harbor unknown microbial life. The lake's extreme conditions, including high pressure and low temperatures, create a fascinating research opportunity for astrobiologists studying life in extreme environments. Access to Lake Vostok is heavily monitored and restricted, mainly because of these microbes. Researchers are trying to explore what life forms might exist in such an isolated ecosystem, but there are significant risks associated with contamination. Any introduction of outside bacteria or substances could destroy the delicate balance of this ancient ecosystem. To prevent contamination, scientists use strict protocols when conducting research near the lake. Specialized drilling techniques have been developed to minimize exposure to the ice above, ensuring that the pristine conditions of Lake Vostok are preserved as much as possible. So any extra people here would mess the whole thing up without anyone even realizing it. 15. Titanium deposits in Madagascar. Madagascar is rich in natural resources, and its titanium reserves, mainly found in the form of ilmenite, are among the largest in the world. This mineral is crucial for producing titanium dioxide, which is used in a lot of products, including paint, plastics, and even sunscreen. Access to these deposits has been restricted. Mining activities can lead to significant ecological disruption, threatening Madagascar's unique biodiversity, which includes many species found nowhere else on Earth. The island's delicate ecosystems are vulnerable to habitat destruction, soil erosion, and pollution from mining operations. 16. North Sentinel Island, Indian Archipelago. North Sentinel Island, part of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, is home to the indigenous Sentinelese tribe, which is just short for, "You'll never want to step foot in here." This tribe is known for its hostility toward outsiders, and because of it, there's strict restrictions on access to the island. The Indian government has declared North Sentinel off-limits to protect the Sentinelese and their way of life, which has remained largely unchanged for thousands of years. That's not just by chance. They've made sure to scare anyone who tries to even come close to them, to keep their lives the way they've always been. The Sentinelese have consistently rejected contact with outsiders, and attempts to interact with them have often ended violently. Their isolation has allowed them to maintain their traditional lifestyle, relying on fishing, hunting, and gathering for sustenance. This cultural preservation is crucial, as the tribe has no immunity to common diseases that could devastate them if introduced by outsiders. To ensure their safety and maintain their autonomy, the Indian government enforces a protective buffer around the island. Only authorized officials and researchers can approach them, and even then, strict guidelines are in place. If you try to break into it anyway, you might not make it out. 17. Snake Island. Snake Island, officially known as Ilha da Queimada Grande, is located off the coast of Brazil and is everyone's worst nightmare. This place is famous for its incredibly high population of golden lancehead pit vipers. These snakes are not only venomous, but also unique to the island. Because of it, the island is heavily restricted and off-limits to the general public for safety reasons. The golden lancehead pit viper's venom is potent and can be deadly to humans, which is a major reason for the access restrictions. The Brazilian government has implemented strict regulations to prevent accidental encounters with the snakes, which can be particularly dangerous given the island's dense vegetation and challenging terrain. Only authorized researchers and scientists are allowed to visit Snake Island, just for the study of the snakes and their ecosystem. Anyone else that comes here is just asking for trouble. 18. Poveglia Island, Italy. Poveglia Island in Italy has a haunting history that makes it one of the most intriguing and off-limits places in the world. Located in the Venetian lagoon, the island was once used as a quarantine station for plague victims during the 14th century. Those who were infected were sent there for their end of life, and it's said that over 160,000 people perished on the island. Later, in the 19th century, Poveglia became a mental asylum where reports of mistreatment and cruel experiments on patients emerged. Yet, they were never confirmed nor fully denied. This dark chapter contributed to the island's scary reputation. After the asylum closed in the 1960s, Poveglia was largely abandoned, but its reputation as a haunted site stayed. Today, access to Poveglia is restricted. The Italian government has declared the island off-limits to protect its historical significance and to prevent vandalism. 19. The Catacombs of Paris, France. The Catacombs of Paris are the scariest labyrinth you'll ever hear about. Buried beneath the city, filled with the remains of over 6 million souls, this is a place even ghosts don't want to be at. Originally limestone quarries, these dark tunnels were transformed in the late 18th century into an underground ossuary as Paris grappled with overflowing cemeteries. Walking through the catacombs, you'll see walls lined with skulls and bones, arranged in unsettling patterns that tell haunting stories of the past. While some sections are accessible for brave souls willing to take guided tours, vast areas of this subterranean maze remain strictly off-limits. These restricted passages are rumored to harbor ghostly whispers and chilling encounters. The deeper you venture, the more oppressive the air becomes, as if the very walls hold the secrets of those long gone. Once you stray from the well-known paths, you might find yourself lost in the shadows, surrounded by the echoes of the departed. In here, you'd never even guess that the City of Lights is right above your head. 20. The Andrea Doria, Atlantic Ocean. The Andrea Doria, a luxury liner that sank off the coast of Nantucket in 1956, is not just a shipwreck. It's an underwater grave. Known as the Mount Everest of diving, this site brings in adventurous divers with its haunting beauty, but also poses extreme risks that these people always brush off. Strong currents whip through the area, creating unpredictable conditions that can quickly turn a dive into a fight for survival. The wreck itself is unstable, with twisted metal and crumbling structures that can collapse without warning. Navigating through the debris is quite a challenge, where even the most experienced divers can get trapped. Many have attempted to explore the Andrea Doria, but the danger is real. Several divers have lost their lives in the process, drawn to the allure of the sunken vessel, but ultimately overwhelmed by its hazards. Because of how hard it is to survive here, this remains one of the most dangerous, restricted places on Earth. 21. Morgan Island. Morgan Island, often referred to as Monkey Island, is an interesting but totally off-limits destination off the coast of South Carolina. This isolated island is home to a population of feral monkeys, which were introduced there for research purposes. Over the years, these monkeys have thrived, creating a wild and untamed community. Access to Morgan Island is heavily restricted, mainly because of the health risks associated with interacting with the monkeys. They can carry diseases that are transmissible to humans, making any unauthorized visits a potential health hazard. Additionally, the presence of these monkeys raises ecological concerns, as their growing population can impact the local ecosystem. While the sight of these creatures roaming freely may be tempting for adventurous explorers, the reality is that Morgan Island is a place where nature reigns supreme. But if you had to, which one of these restricted places would you want to explore in person?